Hi everyone, I'm here to show you how you can use deep research in both ChatGPT and Gemini in order to do some really cool stuff. So I'm gonna first go ahead and put my prompt in here. This is a prompt I spent some time thinking about, and you can see I'm not just asking, hey, teach me about how to be a better English as a second language teacher, but I'm including some specific context. Once you hit the deep research button here, what you're going to see is that ChatGPT is going to give you some follow-up questions to make sure that it is researching the right thing. It's going to ask for a little bit more specificity. This is where the real benefit and power of these tools comes in here, is that I can tell it a little bit more about my classroom situation, and I'm going to get some customized results here. We can see that after a moment, ChatGPT starts to go out to the web and it's going to find about 20 to 30 sources on the internet that it can review and then give me a good answer to. I do want to point out at this point that typically it's going to go to the easiest to find things with a couple of Google searches. So it's not like you're going to be getting, research documents for the most part, but you are going to be getting typically reputable resources. We can see that after about 3 minutes of thinking and looking at 14 sources, along with 76 searches in its search engine here, I was able to come up with this pretty well put together document for us that is going to show me a little bit more about how to approach English as a second language in my classroom. At the end here, I can see all of the sources that I got, and I can even pull this into Canvas mode and continue to edit and iterate on this document for whatever my purposes are. In this instance, I want to make sure that this is going to be useful for the other teachers that I have in my classroom. And so what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to say, hey, take this report and let's edit this to make it really helpful for a first year teacher. And so ChatGPT is going to go ahead and take this and rewrite it a little bit. It got a little bit confused, but as I pull out to the chat, you can see that it has created a one-page document of this. Again, the real power here is that it is going to be really specified for my use case, but we can do even more with this deep research mode in tools like Gemini and Claude. So let's take a look at those. Okay, let's move over to Gemini, where we're going to see another version of this, very similar to ChatGPT. It doesn't matter what model I have selected. Once I click the deep research tool, that tool is going to take over, and it doesn't matter what model I am using here. It's going to think for a second, and then different from ChatGPT, instead of asking me questions, it's going to propose a research plan that then I need to review. I'm going to edit it here and make it clear that while I do want help in terms of using those iPads I have in my classroom, I'm unable to download any kind of applications. And so everything needs to be browser based. And so this does require a little bit more user review before hitting submit. But once I hit submit, I get this to my research plan. It does a similar process where it starts to go out onto the internet and search as much as it can in order to find me good sources that are going to support me. It will think for a while here. This search thought for a little bit longer than my ChatGPT search, but ultimately what I get is very similar product. I get this great output here that explains a lot of these things, and then I can actually go ahead and use this. And the benefit of using something like Gemini is that I can customize it even more. So if I go up to my little create here button, I could put this on a canvas, I put this on a Google Doc, but one thing that Google does with their Notebook LM plugin here is that they're going to generate a audio overview. And so this will ultimately turn this into a quick little 6-minute podcast explaining these concepts. While this is a little bit silly, I do find it is really helpful to digesting a large amount of information. And this might be something I share with those first year teachers in my classroom. The other thing I can do with Gemini is that Gemini will actually create apps for you really easily. So if I go up to the create and I type in this and I say, I want to create a small game that is going to help my students practice cognates, you'll be really surprised, I hope, at what Gemini can generate in just a couple of minutes. It creates a little video game for me here that allows me to test cognates. But of course, I'm going to have to do a little bit of tweaking and include some human intelligence here in order to make sure this game is actually challenging. So I go back and say, hey, look, we talked about false cognates in this report, but you never included those false cognates in here. So why don't you go and edit this game and make sure that there are some false cognates? I go back and try the game again, and I actually get a couple of questions wrong because it's a little bit more challenging. But let's not stop there. Gemini has found a way to include their Gemini API in the little coding projects that they make for you in a really easy way. All I have to do is click this little magic button down at the bottom. And what it will do is rewrite my code and now include a Gemini API. So if I go back to the preview here, we can see a new feature has been explained. When I get a question wrong, it will say, explain the difference to me. And it will generate a new AI generated report here that explains the difference to my students. If you are like, terrified by the fact that I just introduced coding here, don't panic. You can always use Gemini to explain the code to you and explain to you what is actually happening in your project so that you have more control as you move forward. Again, there's a lot of things we can do with deep research, but these are some of the easiest. I hope that this is helpful to you. Reach out if you have any questions.